Welcome back to Loose Boards, a show where we dig into game mechanics that you may or may not be familiar with. This week, we're doing dice. If you don't know what dice are, this is for you. If you do know what dice are, this is also for you. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be dicey. Dice. I've really put more in my mouth than that. So what are dice? Dice are small, rolly things with multiple sides. When you roll them, they come to land on a single side showing a particular face. Sometimes they're adorable little cute six-sided cubes, and sometimes they are ungodly 20-sided monstrosities. And sometimes they can be even weirder. What do dice simulate? I'm going to stop rolling dice now because it's going to just f*** this up. I'm going to pretend though because I like the action. The rolling of a dice gives a random outcome controlled by the number of sides on the dice and the contents of each side. Looking at a standard six-sided dice, one of these lovely little cubes, when rolled, it will land on any one of these six faces, which shows a number from 1 to 6. With each result being distinct from one another, there's a 1 in 6 chance of each number being rolled. Probabilities. Chance. Chance. Chance? This means that dice can be used to determine outcomes that are either partially or completely at the cruel whims of fate. Fate! How do dice work? Easy. You take the dice, hold it tightly in your cold, clammy hands, pray quietly to whichever gods of fate you believe in, and then just roll the dice. Whichever face lands face up is your result. I rolled a 6, by the way. Easy. Or is it? Yeah, it's pretty easy. Dice have literally been used since before recorded history. We have no idea who created the first dice or where they even came from. But there are examples of games that use dice from almost 5,000 years ago in places like ancient Iran, Pakistan, and Egypt. The earliest forms of dice that have been discovered are generally made of stone or wood or bone and may have come about as an evolution of tossing the bones, an activity in which you and your buddies would go out into the snowy wastelands, bash a woolly mammoth, cut it open, plunge your hand inside, pull out a bone, see what number is on the bone from 1 to 6. This activity is strenuous and became a whole lot less popular with the invention of the dice. Now that we have dice, we don't need to kill woolly mammoths. Don't do this at home, kids. There's a lot of thought that the chance probabilities created by dice are what led to playing cards and other physical game pieces that we use. Cards! There are no two ways about it. Dice have been the cool kids on the block for 5 centuries because they feel good to use. They feel... they feel so good. They feel amazing. Woohoo! They feel good to roll, to click and clack and stack them in a dice tower and then you put them in your mouth. Whether they're made from plastic like they generally are now, or metal, wood, stone, they just feel so good and they're so satisfying to click and clack against each other. They click and they clack real nice. Why are dice good? Well, dice are so versatile. Want a 50-50 result? Give it a roll, and if it's odd, you've got one, and if it's even, you've got another. You want to get more complicated with it? Be my guest! Be my guest! Be my guest! The way a game maker can control the probable outcome of a roll by changing the distribution of numbers on a face of a dice is pure genius. Like in Root. Root does this so well. They have 2 dice, and they have numbers on them from 0 to 3, and numbers show up more than others. They're not your normal 6-sided dice. They're probably, I don't want to open it up, but they're probably D10s from memory. They're great. It's brilliant. It's genius. This game is genius. Just because they're small and oh so smooth doesn't mean they're good eating. Dice are small. They're a choking hazard. And when you roll them, they get lost. I've probably lost dice filming this episode. Does that plant shake every time I wiggle? That's a nightmare. Dice are so small, and when you use them, you throw them. Because of this, they might be lost or swallowed by a passing bird. Another thing we don't like about dice here at Hoopsnake is that the singular for one of these bastards is die, and that's either annoying or scary. I'm scared. Why would you use a dice? Why would you use a dice? I mentioned before that dice were a great way of determining outcomes that have an element of chance to them. If you want to randomise a result or a game condition, just roll a dice. Dice! Roll loads of dice. It's good. Roll some dice. If you want to have more control over the result as a game maker or a player, roll more dice. Each dice has a statistical average of 3.5, so the more dice you roll, the closer you're going to get to the middle of that curve of probabilities. The bell?
Yes, that's right, Josh. The bell. This one even comes with a free die on top, although it doesn't make for very good rolling. When it comes to dice maths, it's all about the probability distribution. You take 1d6 and roll it, it's got an equal chance of landing on all 6 sides, giving you a nice flat distribution. You roll 2 though, and add them up, and that distribution starts to form a peak. What's the most likely outcome?
I don't know.
7, correct. Settlers of Catan subtly reminds its players of this distribution by placing more dots on the numbers that are more likely to crop up throughout the game. When you roll 3 dice, the peak becomes more of a curve, and my hands have a hard time. And this becomes more truthful. The more dice you roll, the more fun you have, and the more likely you are to get a result that's closer to the average. But there's more you can do to play around with this distribution. You can give it some skew one way or the other by rolling 2 dice and taking the highest, rolling 3 dice and taking the 2 lowest. You could explode a die, meaning if you roll it and it rolls its maximum value, you roll it again and add it on, and keep doing that, potentially leading to an infinite outcome. You could also roll 2d6 and take the highest, roll a d12, take the highest of those 2, multiply that by 2d4, take the lowest of this result and 5d6, and you get this lovely distribution. Back to Josh.
You want to check the weather in a war game? Roll the dice, look it up on a table. You want to see who wins in a fight? Have them both roll dice and compare the results. There's just so much you can do with this one teeny tiny little cube. Matt?
My favourite dice-based game has got to be Warhammer 40k. It's kind of like to wargaming what... Sit down. That's easier. St. Cloud. The same way D&D is to TTRPGs, Warhammer is to wargaming. It's what most of us started with, and for that it has a deep place in my heart. You use dice to do everything. To attack, to roll to wound, to save, to charge, everything. It's dice-based carnage. Nothing can quite beat the look in your foe's eye when you pick up 80 dice to roll to hit, and nothing can quite beat the horror when you miss with 74 of them. My favourite dice mechanic in a game is from Warcry, also by Games Workshop. I should probably play other people's games. Anyway, in Warcry, for initiative, you roll 4 dice. For every double you get, I just got a double 2, you get an interesting ability to spend on your little guys. For every triple or quadruple, you get more things to do. However, your initiative is determined by how many single results you got. I got a 6 and a 5. And so you're left with this trade-off. Do you want the abilities? Do you want the initiative? Thrown into this, you get a dice a turn that you can also save for next turn. I have 2. You can add to your dice. So maybe I want that double to be a triple, but also maybe I need another double. Then I've only got 1 dice for initiative. It leads to so many questions and choices before the fighting of the little dudes has even started. All from dice!
Dice show up in all kinds of games, but generally ones where players are all together in a physical environment around a table, playing Root or something else, or D&D. They're very common in war games and board games and role-playing games. Like D&D, I've already mentioned D&D. D&D uses loads of dice. That's why I have this chest full of dice. I have hundreds of dice in this chest. I'm going to show you my dice later. We'll get them all out, don't worry. We'll look at them one by one, it'll be amazing. Maybe we won't do that, that sounds like it's going to take a lot of time. But that's not always the end of it. Often video games use dice rolls behind the scenes to determine things, like Knights of the Old Republic, which is based loosely on 3rd edition of D&D. Because dice are super abstract representations of probability and chance, they play really nicely with other game mechanics. I've already mentioned tables. You roll a dice and look it up on a table for things. I love tables. I love tables. I need to go and pick up all my dice now for this next bit. Oh, they're on the floor, aren't they? Where are they gone? They're all over the place. 3, 4, 5. I think that's all of them. So what about some slightly different uses for the dice? Well, maybe you could have a game all about stacking dice. Like some kind of Schrodinger's Jenga. One of Toby's favourite uses of dice is in Liar's Dice or Perudo, where you take some dice and you cover them with a cup. This cup's made of glass, Toby. It doesn't work. Do you see the problem? It's a great example of combining the randomness of dice with the untrustworthiness of your friends and colleagues. It creates a delightfully deceitful game that revolves around guessing how many of a certain face are under all the cups on the table, not just your own. Dice probably won't change much more than they have already in the last 5,000 years, but I also don't think they're going to be going anywhere. They're so integral to everything that we do, everything that we love. I would happily put dice in almost anything I made or designed. Recently I've been working with an idea that revolves around 6 dice that represent 6 bullets in your shooting iron. Yeehaw! Dice! In the game, you take it in turns to draw cards off the top of a deck and then try and shoot them down. Oh, I just got it! Killed the bandit before they can get away and rustle your cattle. It's chaos, it's brilliant, it's wonderful. It's a group game that's just quick and easy to play with your friends. All you need is 6 dice per person and a pack of cards. You can probably find a link to the full rules somewhere below in the description. Probably. In conclusion, dice are really good. We love dice. Dice! I'm a dice down. I'm a dice down! Oh, why do they roll so far? They roll so far. Oh, it's descending into chaos now. Oh, I genuinely think I've lost that dice. Found it. You just need cards and dice. That sort of rounds up what I wanted to say about dice today. In future episodes, this will probably get longer and slightly more complicated as we talk about mechanics that are different and or more complex. We might talk about playing cards next. I think those are quite interesting, but then we might also be talking about real-time strategy and virtual economies. It's all going to be found here on Loose Boards. Working title. I'll see you on the next episode of Loose Boards. I will see you on the next episode of Loose Boards.